Okay, our next presenter is Mijun Pak. Mijun is an international food personality, founder of FollowMeFoodie.com, former food columnist at We Vancouver, Food Network Canada personality, and resident judge on Top Chef Canada. That's quite a resume. Mijun has been featured as one of the world's most extreme foodies in the Sunday Times and judges for the BC Product of the Year Award, the Canadian Grand Prix New Product Awards, and Vancouver Magazine Restaurant Awards. Please welcome Mijun Pak.
All right, I'm going to take this. Hello? All right. Thanks for staying, guys. I know it's been kind of a long day for you. I'm going to start by introducing myself because I'm sure not everybody in here knows what I do or how I got here. In 2009, July 2009, that's almost about 9 years ago now, I started a blog called FollowMeFoodie.com. Food has always been like a huge passion of mine, but I took it very intensely when I was traveling abroad. So I spent my last semester in the Netherlands and I was doing tons of research on food. I was buying ingredients, I was shipping them home, I was meeting people, getting their mother's recipes, and I got really obsessed with it, doing tons of research online. And I started taking pictures and kind of writing things in a notebook and just writing things about like culture, about food, about recipes. And I came home and my sister was kind of saying, well, what are you going to do with all your photos and everything that you've collected, all this data? And I continued doing it in Vancouver. And she said, well, why don't you start a blog? And at that time, I had no idea what a blog was. I was like, oh, I don't really know anything about blogs. I don't really know how to start a website. And she's like, well, there's so many platforms now. It's really easy. At that time, she was hobby, makeup, and fashion blogging. I said, okay. And so she showed me how to do it on at that time it was Blogspot. She showed it to me and then she's like, okay, well think of a name for your blog. And then, I thought of a couple options and then Follow Me Foodie ended up being what I picked. And she's like, that's available. Let's secure that. She's like, okay, well, you should secure your Instagram and your Twitter. And this was 9 years ago when Twitter and Instagram were super, super new. It's kind of crazy to think that we were around when Twitter and Instagram were invented. But she said, secure this, secure your YouTube channel, secure all this stuff. And I said, I'm never going to do it. And she's like, well, just save it just in case you never know. So I secured all those platforms and she showed me how to start the blog. I started writing the blog and it was super easy. I thought it was going to be really, really hard. I don't know how to build a website, don't know anything about that, nothing about technology. But now there are so many things out there that help you that it made it super easy. I said, okay, well, I think I can sustain this for once every 3 days. I eat out often enough. I can write at a new restaurant once every 3 days. And I got addicted on the first day and I started writing every single day, Monday through Sunday, on average about 2,500 words. That's 10 pages long on one restaurant every single day for 3.5 years until I did get slightly burnt out and then I stopped writing. So it's interesting because everyone kind of introduces me still as like, oh, Mijun Pak, blogger from Follow Me Foodie, because that's how I started. But since then, 9 years ago, things have changed immensely. So what I'm about to tell you guys and everything that I'm going to share with you guys is not something that's going to be like permanent or it's not going to be static. It's just everything is changing so quickly and so rapidly that even this is supposed to be my specialty and my profession, and I can't even keep up with it because it's changing so much. And so when I started the blog, after a while, in the beginning, it was kind of hard to get that respect from chefs or from traditional journalists because you can write anything on the internet. And that's why you can write any reviews. Everyone's a restaurant critic. Anyone can criticize anything. And so I had to do the research. Eventually the blog grew. I got the newspaper column, joined Food Network 3 years ago, and then Top Chef Canada and Iron Chef, which Ned Bell is going to be on tomorrow battling Rob Feeney. And then the guest judges, we all rotate. So make sure you guys PVR that. So I'm here to talk about social media management. I'm not sure where everyone's coming from here. I'm sure there's chefs and there's restaurateurs and everyone's from different categories. So if there's anything along the way, like I'm very open to you asking questions and me responding to that if you guys have anything specific in mind that you want to ask. So I want to talk about social media management and just owning your online presence online. So just curious, like I'm sure everybody here probably has a website. Yes, does everybody have Instagram and Twitter Oh, so this is great. Like I see everyone kind of nodding their heads. So a really important thing is to know, let's see, this is social media manage. So what is social media? We can see this. That would be the next slide. Yeah. What is social media? So, okay, we have all these platforms, and it's really about community engagement, and of course, we'll get to promotion, advertise, and branding. So, the thing is, there's different social media platforms. We can probably go on the next one as well. And knowing your social media platforms, I'm not sure if everybody is on everything, because again, it's really hard to keep up with everything these days. But with every single platform you're using, you're engaging with a different audience. So it's not necessarily, oh, I only have time for Instagram. That's going to get my message out there. Oh, I only have time for Facebook. That's going to get my message out there. It really depends on what you're trying to do and who you're trying to sell towards. So, for example, if you like with Facebook, that's always going to be kind of an older demographic. And I find not necessarily nowadays because it's owned by Instagram as well, but with Facebook, it's almost your family and friends. You kind of make less of those business connections than you would on, say, something like Instagram and Twitter. And for Twitter, some people say, well, isn't that dying out? Like, who uses that anymore? Yes and no. For certain people, like a lot of journalists and a lot of people that are very vocal with the job they're doing, it's almost like the medium is the message. For a lot of food critics, a lot of journalists, Twitter still holds very high priority for them because a lot of people want to engage. And that's a whole big part of social media. It's not just about like sales pitchy stuff, throwing images. This is what I do, self-promotion, da 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 da. It's a lot about how you interact with everybody talking to you. And I made that mistake as well. That's why I don't want this to be this is what I did, this is what you should do. It's like this is what I did and this is what worked for me, and I'm still trying to figure out along the way because everything is changing. So after when I started the blog, I was always responding to what everybody was saying. Like every comment, every answer, everything I was responding. And it's really hard to sustain that. So when I started going more onto Instagram, which all of us can agree that, people are less doing the blogging and more onto Instagram. And I don't want to say that blogging is no longer important because it's a different platform for different people. Just like how, a podcast is now for a different person. So all of these are there's pros and cons to each of them and strengths to each of them. Of course, Instagram is the one that we see growing the most, but we also see that what you're allowed to write in that caption is a lot less than what it would be on a blog post. Blog post, you can write as much as you want. Instagram, they actually limit it. And I think now we're even seeing YouTube start to come in. It's a big visual society where everybody wants to see things. So even when in my field before it was we would have a picture and then we would talk about the food, we would discuss it, and we would write all this stuff about it. Now it's just more turned into this photo, visually attractive images that are really connecting with people. And again, we see kind of Instagram being more powerful than, say, things like platforms like Twitter because a photo says 1,000 words. Twitter, you have to speak certain languages to be able to understand and to be able to communicate to people. Whereas Instagram, you're able to do it through photos. It's also a really great way, I'm sure everybody has noticed, it's cost effective. Rather than spending thousands of dollars on advertising, on traditional advertising, which is again going to hit towards a certain market. So that's always really important too, to know what market, what platform, who you're talking to is super important. And so before, when I would always kind of answer replies and communicate a lot on blogging. And then afterwards, when I changed to Instagram, I was like, well, that took a really long time. I'm going to try to simplify this and simply do a description, have people comment, and not really engage. And I did that, and then womp, womp, womp. That did not do me any favors. The followers did not increase, engagement was not happening, and you just can't really take the easy route out. That is why that a lot of people hire social media professionals, people to manage their account, because it can get to be a full-time job. That's up to you if you're gonna think that that's worth your investment. And there's bad and good in every single field. So you'd have to do your research on who you're gonna get to do that. But with me, because I'm kind of my personal brand. Like I don't have a restaurant. So for me, it's for myself. And actually when I started on Instagram, and now Instagram is getting even more personal with Instagram stories where you can do videos and look into your life. And it's funny because Ned didn't start Instagram until like maybe a few months ago. And then he started Instagram and he's doing really well at it. But he was telling me, he's like, Mijun, like I really like that you're doing your Instagram stories, and like Instagram, it really shows more into your life and it makes you more real and more personable. And I totally understood what you meant by that. And that's kind of certain things that people are looking for nowadays, is to have almost like a relationship with that person or that restaurant, to be really connected with them, that they can ask questions, that they can feel like that they're part of this community. And so, after I learned that, okay, there is no easy way out, you kind of have to put this on again, or have to answer comments and, do all this stuff and engage with the community, which is partially you have to enjoy that as well. Then you kind of have to look at also how Instagram manages their algorithms, which is super, super tricky. So I'm kind of bouncing all over the place here because this is how social media is. Every single year, every single 4 months, Instagram changes their algorithm on you. And then you kind of have to refigure that out on how that works. So depending on what your priority is, if it's building followers, or if it's engaging, or if it's advertising, if it's branding, you decide. And you can do that all together, but you need to kind of decide what your focus is. Sometimes it's hard, you don't want to spread yourself too thin, but those are all the things that should always be in the top of your head. To keep consistency, like, how I writing every single day, having a post either every single day or every 3 days. Because once you stop that, again, your Instagram and visibility on Instagram is going to drop massively. So Instagram, they reward people who are using their platforms consistently. Not certain people that are also flooding it, like 10 posts a day, where people are going to unfollow you because it's just too much. But it's also not posted on a certain timeline. Instagram posts according to who you're engaging with most often. That's how they showcase who sees your material. And they also, what they do is they also promote, or they also show your stuff more often if you're engaging with all those comments. So people that reply to you, you have to reply within that 24 hours of getting a comment, or it doesn't count. So Instagram's theory is kind of their way of keeping you on that platform for as long as possible. Why you get to DM people, you get to watch videos on there, you get to see Instagram stories, you get to comment on people and have conversations. That's their goal on how you can increase your online presence on there. If you don't want to go directly to paid advertising, which isn't always a bad thing as well, because nowadays you can get so strategic in terms of who you're targeting, what age group, what demographic, and who you want to speak to. I think Instagram does maybe 1 advertisement per every 5 posts that you're viewing. And so that's also a benefit. Has anyone tried either advertising on Facebook or Instagram or any of those platforms? A little bit here and there. Yeah, and I'm not and that's up to you on how well, I don't want to say like it doesn't work for everybody. It does. It just depends on what you're promoting, how you're promoting it. Yeah, do you have a question? Yeah, for sure.
Is advertising different from boosting? Like when you boost a post?
Boosting a post, no, it's similar. I'm pretty sure it's similar because I've had to do that as well. So another part of my job is I do endorsements. So I'll work with, certain brands or certain companies on product endorsements, or for example, recipe things, or whatever new product they have coming out, and then sometimes they'll want to boost that particular post. And so yeah, that'll be pretty much the same thing. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to keep asking, or I can always just keep going. These are other ones that have been really important, like Snapchat, that's another one, LinkedIn, Pinterest. And it's almost impossible to do every single one unless you're going to hire someone to manage everything for you. For me, I usually keep my focus on the first 3 or 4 things on there. YouTube, again, is really important. We see that just on the rise in terms of even succumbing what Instagram is doing. It's just such a digital age where everyone loves visuals and visual storytelling. And that's where Instagram started showcasing their Instagram stories. Their little short little 15-second videos that you can stitch together, and people can look into your life and see what you're doing. And that's been proven as very successful on Instagram and Facebook because they're owned by the same company. So yes, who is your audience? And learning how to connect and communicate with them. Let's see, what else? So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, that's the thing too. Everyone, I think, talks a lot about starting an Instagram account or starting this platform or starting that, but they don't actually do it. And you don't actually know until you try it. Sometimes you're just going to have to test it out and see what works for you, which is great because I used to do these kind of talks, and then a lot of people, maybe half of the people here would have an Instagram account, but it's also not important. It's not just about having an Instagram account and signing up for one. It's about actually using it. Like, how many people have it and actually use it consistently? Okay, so that's maybe like, not even 50%. And that's the thing too, right? You have to, and I know it's time consuming, it is, but that's what it is. You have to look at it as part of your business and part of branding, owning your presence on there. Definitely part of your branding. And also have all those social media things attached to your website as well. And again, it's not necessarily not important having a blog anymore, but there's just another way of storytelling. So storytelling will always be there. It's just how do you want to share your story? All right. Content. Yeah, so this is like another thing too. So when I first started, well, content, it depends. So what do I want to go on? I don't know how much, we don't have that much time, so we have like 5 minutes left. I kind of want to jump into the whole ethics and things because I think that would be most relatable to everybody here. When I first started, there was a lot of media tastings and a lot of people just throwing you products. Like literally, I've been offered Gooey Duck in exchange for blog posts. You know what I mean? Like I've been offered like the most whatever you want, right? And it's just all this stuff it's gonna happen, or just like a lot of trade of services. And for when I first started, I would be very, I would be very honest about that and just say, well, I still am. I would still say either this meal was sponsored or, it's a sponsored post, advertising, da 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 da. And a lot of people would also do these media events where they would invite 20, 30 people to come try their food and then everybody would go talk about it. You can still do that now and it still happens now, but it's also changing. That doesn't usually work with a lot of people anymore. Like a lot of people that you're going to do that with are probably going to be a lot of people that are more green, that are more willing to go for anything for free food, that are not necessarily committed to either the education or the learning or really passionate about what they're doing. As Ned and I said, there's a lot of fluffy things, like fluffy people out there, right, who are going to go for the free food. And that's the thing. If that's what you want, though, and that's your branding or that's your product or that's what you care about, is like one post, doesn't matter who it's from, is good enough, then by all means, you can you can put that out there and be, hey, we have a media tasting from 5 to 7 o'clock, whenever you want to come in. And then you're going to get just everybody from all across the page. And mostly it's going to be the greener people that probably won't have as much followers, or if they do, it's maybe not someone that's going to necessarily buy your product. So that's also important. Just know who you're inviting before you actually invite them. And which is, that's all changing too now. So I don't know. Do you guys have any questions? I mean, there's like so many topics. It's kind of hard to get in that time bit, but my time's going to be up as well soon. Yes?
We live in a space where traditional media like television, newspapers are still incredibly important. And social media is also incredibly important. You see that sort of paralleling into the future. If you want to take home.
It's really interesting. I think if we just look at what's happening, it's kind of just newspapers are having such a hard time on keeping those pages, big, or a lot of number of pages. It's just smaller and smaller every time you pick one up. And we've seen so many of them shut down. And I don't think they'll ever necessarily go away. I think they're just deciding to do a lot more on digital, right? Bringing those newspapers, those magazines onto a digital space to make it more cost effective. I really think this almost goes back to education as well, because just because it's a newspaper or a magazine, it doesn't mean it's more credible than, say, a blogger or some other person. But that it really requires the reader or the audience to educate themselves on who the writer is of that particular article and that publication.
Can you talk a little bit about SEO?
Yeah, so SEO is something that, I used to do a little bit myself, and that was a very do-it-yourself type when they were just like, okay, this is how you can promote your articles. You throw in your keywords there and whatnot. And nowadays, it's just like with do-it-yourself, that's a lot of work on just you. And so this would be more of just hiring people to help you do it. But then whatever material that they're promoting has to be authentic to what you have. So there's certain people that are like, oh, okay, we're gonna make sure you get on first page of Google and that you're searched all the time. But it doesn't really matter if you're getting hits if you don't have a product that's actually relevant to what people are searching for. They're just gonna land on your website, and then it's just, if there's nothing that has relevance to that, then there's no purpose. So just make sure every step that you're taking, if you're gonna invest in SEO, that it's someone good that makes sense for your brand and the message you're trying to set out. Because again, authenticity, as much as you can lie a lot in the online space nowadays, it's also incredibly important to be authentic to your audience because they can kind of see right through you. Yeah. And also in the digital world, it's becoming a lot more creative. So it's not necessarily just about like information and bombarding people with information, but the delivery of information has to be delivered in a very creative space. For example, if you guys look at, Oreo or M&M's, if you look at their Instagram page, they essentially have one product, and that's an Oreo cookie. And I'm not like promoting them or anything, but they have like 2 million followers. And you should see how they freaking promote this Oreo cookie with all the storytelling that they give and all the different types of contests and storytelling and ideas that they give to promote this one cookie. It's just getting to be such a creative space out there that that's really what we're walking into. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions about online branding or your presence? If you're too shy, you can ask me later as well, but I'm over time already. So please, feel free to, I'll be around here a little bit longer, and I think I'm the last presenter anyways. Thank you.